Okay, we're live, season 3, episode 9. Haris Strangas, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Well, it's 8:30 p.m. We were scheduled for 7 p.m. We did the whole Greek time. You looked at me, you said, "Bum enough, We went. It's 8:30, it's getting late. It's all right.
It's all right for me if it's all right for you.
Awesome. Well, I guess let's get straight into it. How about we take it back as far as you can remember? What was it like growing up in the Strangas family?
Well, as far as I can remember, I remember a world where it was just my brother and I, my mother and my father. Now there's 4 siblings. I've got 2 younger sisters as well. But if we're going to talk about my earliest memories, they were really good memories. I had a very good childhood. My parents were very loving. They were always there. I remained very close with my parents, and I remained very, very close with my brother. We played a lot of soccer. We played in the backyard all the time. We're very active kids. We're very close with our yaya, our aunties. We had a lot of friends and family over all the time. I had a very, very good childhood.
Whereabouts did you grow up?
I actually grew up in Oatley.
Oatley?
Yes.
Oatley's next to Brighton.
It's closer to Hurstville.
Close to the Earth, yes.
So if you think of Morthdale, Penshurst, suburbs around there, Oatley.
Of course. Big Greek community there.
It is a growing Greek community there. There are more Greeks towards Connells Point and Blakehurst, which are neighbouring suburbs, Cast Park, which isn't very far. When I grew up, Oatley was a predominantly Anglo-Saxon suburb. It's completely changed now.
Yeah. There you go. And let's actually rewind even further back. So background, obviously Greek. Your parents born here?
My mother was born here. She actually wasn't born far from here, Parramatta Way. My father was born in Greece, on the island of Mykonos, actually.
Wow. That's legendary. And, okay, so he was born in Mykonos. What age did he come here?
So, whilst he was born in Mykonos, his family were from the island of Limnos. What am I saying? The island of Limnos. And really, he's Limnian. And he spent time in his youth living between both Limnos and Mykonos. At the time, my papu was a miner, and he was working as a miner in Mykonos, which is why he was obviously born there. He came here at the age of 8.
Wow. There you go. And did he come here with, well, obviously his family, and where did he come? Where did he kind of grow up?
So my grandfather came first, and then my father came with his mother, my yaya, and his sister, before his other sister was born here. He grew up around the Tempe area, the Marrickville area.
Of course. Straight to Marrickville. And what did your grandfather do?
I never knew my grandfather. He passed before I was born. If we're going to go back, real back, the actual mine that he worked on in Mykonos is now referred to as the Chernobyl of the Aegean. If you go to Mykonos today, you can find this abandoned village. It's pretty crazy. It's the remnants of what was this mining town, and basically everybody that worked on those mines died very, very young because they had horrendous working conditions. And my papu, by all accounts, by the time he got into Australia, he started to get sick. Wow. I've actually received letters from people in Greece, because I share the same name as my grandfather, trying to sue the company that had all these people working on the mines there in Mykonos. Now, it goes quite deep, right? There's been documentaries on it. There's a plaque in the middle of this mining town with my grandfather's name on it, or my name as well, Haris Strangas, but they've taken out the sigma, the S, so it's Haris Strangas. And for me, going to Mykonos, this crazy big party island that's internationally renowned and really condensed, especially if you go there now. Mykonos is very hard to get around, and everything's a 15-minute or so drive from each location. Going to Mykonos, finding this abandoned, quiet mining village and seeing this plaque with my name on it, honouring all the workers that gave their lives to this project, it was kind of surreal. That happened in my first trip to Greece in 2000. 15.
There you go.
Mm.
Wow. So next time you visit Mykonos, don't just get a Tropicana. Because you just see it as that party island. But let's you're 5 years old. Where'd you go to primary school?
I went to Olympus Primary School.
And how was that?
It was good. It was a sporty school, and I loved my sport as a kid. It was a friendly environment. It was a good suburb, Oatley, back in the day. I had quite a lot of friends.
So would you say the popular
well.
kid?
I was well
Haris,
liked.
Running around in the yard?
In primary school, I was probably one of the better liked kids. I was friends with anybody and everybody. I've never cared about status or being cool or anything like that. I was always the sort of kid that would speak to anybody about anything. Smart kid, the sporty kid, the quiet kid. It never fazed me.
There you go. And back in primary school, a little kid, do you ever have a bit of a side hustle? Were you ever thinking of things? What were you? Did you know what you wanted when you be? Did you know what you wanted to be when you were older, or were you just average kid?
I thought I was going to be a journalist or an author as a
Really?
kid. Yeah, I love to read. And even right through my teens, I thought I would pursue a career in journalism.
Wow. So even from a little kid, you like to write, you like English.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And a part of that is because I thought to be good at business, you had to be exceptional at maths. My father, if we're going to talk about my father again, he has a seafood business, and my father has an exceptional maths brain, much like my brother Tass. I thought, well, I'm not like my dad. I'm not like Baba. I'm good at English. I'm good at reading. I'm good at writing. Those skills you typically associate with an author or a journalist. And as a kid, right throughout primary school, whilst I was sporty, I also loved to read.
There you go. You know what? With all this talking of the Greek heritage, I think it's only right. Tio, we got 2 glasses. We gotta crack that ouzo over there.
I immediately grabbed the glass of water, thinking I was going to have a glass of ouzo with you.
Not yet. Not yet.
I'll give you another one.
Let's do it, man.
Well, I've got our friend that does. It's actually Australia-made ouzo.
Oh, right. This
Zeus.
is what you were telling me about before.
Yes.
There you go. Zeus, there you go.
Zeus.
And us.
You like it?
Yeah, great.
So the whole thing,
Mazime Filus.
together with friends.
Together with friends. Yeah.
All right, let's hit it now.
Thanks, dear.
It's good. It's good to see the Greeks in the community staying in touch with their heritage.
Yeah, it's important.
It is, isn't it?
Cheers.
It is, isn't it? You know, the Italians got Marconi.
Mm.
You know, the Lebos, they got their thing.
Mm.
The Croatians, they've got their clubs too. What do the Greeks got? Where do we go?
Ouzo.
We got Ouzo.
Look, it's actually a huge issue. Cheers, Ari.
Cheers.
Are we going to do it quickly?
Yeah,
or
we're going to do it. We're going to do it.
All right, man. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Yeah.
You going to smash it?
I can't do the whole thing, man.
Look, it's
Very
a real
good.
shame, actually. There's no big Olympic house. There's no massive...
At Sydney Olympic, that was a big thing that we all congregated around back in the...
Well, if you're actually going to talk about my childhood, I recall going to Shark Park as a kid, back in the NSL days, and watching Sydney Olympic play. My father was a long-time supporter of the club. He had quite a few friends who played for the club, coached for the club, and it was natural for us back then to go down and
Sydney
watch
Olympic,
Olympic back in the
My
day.
papa used to take me too. It was a big thing.
Wow.
I remember back in the day, Olympiacos, I was a little kid too, came out once and it was like the biggest thing.
Yeah. Football was a big part of my childhood growing up. I idolised Thierry Henry. I loved Arsenal. I remain an Arsenal fan, not as hardcore as I once was, but yeah, football was a big part of our lives.
What about Karagunis, man?
Oh, we loved Karagunis too.
Karagunis.
Watching him play for Fulham back in the day, he was a beast. And obviously, when we were 9 years old, because we share the same birthday, Greece won the Euros, which was a big
Was
deal.
it 9? It was 9 years old.
We would have been 9 years old, 2004, the same year that Athens hosted the Olympics, and of course the Bulldogs won the NRL Grand Final.
Dude, I say that every time to people. 2004 is the best year ever.
Yeah, it was the best year to be
and you're a
Greek.
Bulldogs fan.
No, I'm not.
Ah.
I'm not a Bulldogs fan, but obviously there's a lot of Greek Bulldogs fans.
Yes. Blue and white, mate. That's the doggies.
Yeah.
But yeah, so you're a young kid. What was your father from back then was in the seafood game, or?
So my old man, as soon as he finished school, he'll not take kindly to the fact of how I describe how he finished school, but basically when he left school, I'll leave that one for another podcast. He started working in a seafood business for a very short period of time, Pharos Seafood in Marrickville.
Yes, Pharos.
Yes. It's like we actually started another Limnian.
Yeah,
and
it's still there, right?
It's still there.
It's a big one, yeah.
I believe they've moved facilities, but they're in the same suburb. And without much time at all, he started running a fish shop. And he started in Cogra. And it was called Saint Seafood. And I think he did that 49 years ago. He has remained in seafood ever since. And my papu, who we spoke about before, he was an excavator when he first came to Australia. So his background in Greece was as a miner. Before then, he was in the army and he was an expert in ammunition in the way of explosives. So he took those skills from the army, used them to blow things up in the mines back in the day. And then when he came to Australia, he knew about digging. So he excavated. And he was a very successful excavator until his health no longer permitted him to continue down that path. And he started working with my father in the seafood businesses, which wasn't as physically intense. Mind you, it can be quite physically intense, but not quite the same as blowing things up and digging.
Yeah. Wow. And your mum?
So my mother has worked all of her life. In my early years, she didn't work. However, when she first met my father, she was an optical dispenser, so she worked in optometries. Now she works as a manager for a cleaning company.
There you go. How is it so many Greeks end up in hospitality, especially the seafood game?
Well, I think for a lot of Greeks, they have background in the trade from back home. I know my grandfather was a fisherman. My father was too young to have done anything in the way of seafood way back when he came to Australia. Obviously, he came when he was 8 years old, but my grandfather was a fisherman as well back in Limnos. And I think as well, Ari, that was where the opportunity was.
Yeah.
Like you weren't going to immediately apply for a course at university. They had to find something. And for my father and for many Greeks, they knew someone who was in the industry and they got started by virtue of knowing somebody.
Yeah.
And naturally, that's where they fit in. The same way that people would go to a Sydney Olympic game, if we're talking about Sydney Olympic now. From what I understand, obviously you and I didn't live it, but you would go because someone would bring you along.
And I think, well, that'd be a big reason for the gravitation. I mean, they do what they know, but I believe, like WOGs in general, Italians, the Lebanese, the Greeks, they just work in hospitality. They've got the body language and the persuasion and the smile, and they got that passion there. They got a lot of theatre, which is something that makes you feel special when you walk in. That care factor. I think for the longevity. I mean, how many years has he had the seafood?
He's been in the industry for 50 years.
50 years.
So right now he's based at Southgate in Sylvania. He has a business called Poseidon's Harvest. He's been there for a long time.
See every Christmas on Facebook going nuts.
That's right.
It's cash money time.
Well, Christmas is when everyone comes to get their seafood, so you need to make sure that
capitalize.
Yeah, exactly right, because it gets quiet in winter.
That's it. 100%. Okay, so you hit high school. Where do you go to high school?
I went to St. Mary's Cathedral.
Okay, that's in the city. St. Mary's Cathedral. It's a high school. Is that boy and girl? Is that?
It's now boy and girl. However, back then it was not co-ed. It was all boys.
Wow. Imagine the moment the boys just went, there's going to be girls coming. Like, imagine that.
Yeah, well, it's just happened now.
Wow.
It's just happened now. You know, thinking back and replaying in my head what high school was like, and then seeing photos of kids on the Facebook page of the school, which I'm seeing still on my feed, it's so different. It's so different.
In
It's changed
what
a
way?
lot. Well,
Are we just getting old, or is it getting different?
I'll say this, right? I think kids are still the same. So everybody likes to say that, oh, kids these days are really bad. Oh, they're off the chain. They've lost the plot. Their values are bad. Every teenager that I seem to come across has issues that are consistent with teenagers in years past, but also they have strengths that are consistent with that of teenagers of years past too. That school has changed. Back when I was at that school, there was a brother as the headmaster. It was far more Catholic in its essence, and the sort of value set that the school had was very traditional for when I was there compared to other schools.
And in high school, sport.
Yeah, I was quite sporty. I was very competitive. I loved to run. I loved to swim. I loved to play soccer as well. I wasn't that good at soccer.
Midfielder.
I was a midfielder.
How'd I pick it?
Or a right back.
Or a right back.
Depending on the team. If I was in a better team, I would probably default to right back. But if I was in a weaker team, I would play as a central midfielder, a defensive midfielder.
There you go. And what else do you remember from school? Did you have any side hustles there?
Yeah. In high school?
Legal?
Definitely.
Yeah, all good?
Always are. You know me, mate. A very, very legal. So even from primary school, I did work for my dad. Back then, my father had stalls at Flemington markets and he ran them with his sisters, my Auntie Martha and my Auntie Helen. And I think those years are some of the years that really grounded me into being who I am. I also worked for my father when he eventually...
In what way? Hard work at an early age?
Yeah, hard work at an early age. It was an intense environment. It was an environment where at times it was hard on the body, it was long, and it was fast and fun.
At Flemington markets?
At Flemington.
What stand?
Just one of the fish stands towards where the cafeteria is. Yes.
There you go.
And what I loved about it was meeting people from all walks of life. Growing up in a suburb that was predominantly Anglo-Saxon, back then, I didn't really get to delve into a world outside of the Anglo-Saxon community I was surrounded by, the Greek community that I would meet through my family. No, it was so different going to Flemington markets. To this day, Flemington markets is just a boiling pot of people from all walks of life. And I really loved that as a kid, learning about different people, different cultures, different ways of thinking, working alongside people from Vietnam, Sri Lanka, Samoa, South America. It was really an experience that I think left in me an appreciation for people.
There you go. High school, what subjects were you doing?
So I studied 3-unit English and I topped extension English, legal studies, ancient history and modern history, and studies of religion too. I went right down that path. And the reason for that is...
What path's that?
Like the path of humanities versus trying a science or a maths. So I was in the bottom of the top maths class in high school. And I would come back home and I would be at the bottom of this top class and my father would see my results, and him being a mathematics machine, like he can figure out equations off the dome.
That's
like crazy.
Exactly.
It actually is from the cash back in the day.
You're just,
to this day,
geared.
like he's not exactly a spring chicken, but he can process how much he needs to purchase, how much it's going to be worth, just off the dome. He's a machine because, well, once upon a time when he was getting into the game, the markets were all verbal. It was an entirely verbal auction. Right now, you know, they press the buttons, they've got their calculators, it's very different. There's even an app for the Sydney fish markets. It was a totally different world back then to the world we live in today in the way of business. And for him, seeing me not doing so well in maths and telling me, why don't you get into, for whatever reason, he made me feel as though this shouldn't be something I do. And because I felt like I was strong at those other subjects, I went down the road of pursuing those other subjects. And again, in the back of my mind, I thought I would become a journalist or a reporter or make documentaries.
Make documentaries. Now
Yes.
that's
Yes.
creative.
Yeah. And I think, again, that stems back to my time working at Flemington Markets, my time even playing sport. I've always had an appreciation for community, culture, the world.
There you go. So you're in year 11, year 12.
Mm-hmm.
You got you're not sure. You're thinking journalism. You're thinking.
Yeah, I wasn't 100% sure, but I thought I would go down the path of journalism.
There you go. All right. So Harris finishes school. I'm guessing you got a great academic mark in the
I
HSC.
went okay. Wasn't brilliant, but I went okay.
What's the first thing you did coming out of school? Did you take a year off? Did
No.
you think no
No.
year off?
I went right into it. But funnily enough, I had a lot of desire to explore, and I wanted to fund that desire. So I'd worked a long period of time right throughout high school in my family business. I'd worked for under 18 events selling tickets. I'd worked at a local swim center teaching kids how to swim, the same place where I learned how to swim. And with that money, I wanted to just see things, and I did as much. So I was very curious, and I traveled a little bit around Australia, nothing crazy. And eventually, when I started university, I just threw myself right out there. I didn't hold back. I had a lot of ambition, not to achieve anything in particular, just to learn more about the world. I think in high school, I was always the sort of person that had in his own head that I was going to go and see things and do things. I wasn't really motivated by business or making money. I was just a curious soul.
Did you do any traveling when you came out?
Eventually, I went to Greece for the first time.
Go see the mines in Mykonos. That's a good excuse.
See everything. See
Good
everything.
excuse.
I didn't even know they existed. I had no idea they existed until
when I have to tell my future wife I'm going to Mykonos to go see the I got to see
see
the
the
mines.
abandoned mining village.
I got to see the mines.
I actually hope those mines survive, because Mykonos is just growing and growing and growing,
Yes,
right? And I
yes.
just hope they're heritage listed and protected, because it's a sad part of history, but it's a part of the history of Mykonos that probably should never be forgotten.
No, I'm curious to just pop it in on YouTube and just because Mykonos these days is where the rich and famous go. The construction company owners of Sydney, and that's where you'll find them. It's crazy what's happening right now. The prices there, it's nuts. And
It's insane.
To hear that part of it once again is. I've been to Mykonos several times, and I didn't know that one.
Mind you, way back then, my father said he vaguely recalls the Shah of Iran visiting Mykonos, American political elite visiting Mykonos. It was starting.
Wow.
Way back then, but obviously right now it's just a haven for outrageous partying. I personally do not like going to Mykonos anymore. Obviously, I went as a young guy. I'm still pretty young, but as a younger guy, I'd much rather go to a quieter, traditional Greek island.
Likewise. Okay, so university, what exactly did you sign up for?
So I was in the realm of media comms and journalism.
Okay.
So I thought I'd head down that path, but I quickly thought I wouldn't. So I had it in my head that I was going to do all these different things, but when I started to get a taste for it all, my ambition started to twist and turn, and I started getting curious for other things.
And what kind of things were those?
So the very first week of university, week, I rocked up and I signed up for 3 different clubs. I walked past a comedy club. I thought this would be funny. I signed up. There was some bloke there. He was cracking a few jokes, and I thought, okay, this would be interesting. I might meet some funny people here. I walked to another stand. I saw the Greek Society. I saw some people I knew. 1, 2, 3, signed up. And then I walked past the UTS Liberal Club stall. I could tell you the names of both people now. Maybe they don't want to be mentioned. I don't think either of them have much to do with the Liberal Party anymore. I'll just call them M and J. And M and J, they signed me up. And back then, I was someone that held political views, inclinations. I had an interest in politics, but I didn't see myself going down the path that I eventually did.
Wow.
I was curious.
You're walking really past, you see two people on a stand. And how's this work?
So you typically think that you'd go to the stand that is really big and vibrant. And actually today I was looking at some stories. I responded to the UTS Hellenic story saying, wow, you guys are doing a great job. Brings back big memories. Like, it's all very, very vibrant. People are in your face. My memory of M and J, and this probably will tell you a little bit about the sort of person I am. I saw them there looking lonely by themselves, and I actually felt sorry for them.
Shout out to M and J.
M and J. They're probably going to watch this, and they're going to think, did he feel sorry for us? Is that why he went over? Because I think it was a really big deal for them to be there in this environment with all these cool kids, everyone in universities, a little bit edgy, a little bit flash. They were two kind of stiff, conservative-looking guys back then. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to go up and sign up. I want to support them, which is probably the reverse of what a lot of people do when they sign up to clubs. But I thought it's quite noble for them to be there standing for what they believe in and running this little stall.
Yes. So what happened? You started chatting with him. You got curious.
Mm-hmm. It was curiosity.
Kept in contact.
I did, but my first year of university, I was just too busy exploring the world. I was out there socializing, making friends. I mean, you knew me back then. I was out there. I wasn't out there in an offensive way.
Is that the club days or is that?
Just before then, but I actually did start working from then in nightclubs. So I was promoting Pasha at the Ivy. I was interested in travel. I was kind of finding myself, for lack of better words. I wouldn't say it back then, but I was probably finding myself. And I was a member of the party, but it wasn't probably until 2 years later where I really started to pursue it in a different way.
Yeah. Cool. So after that first year of uni, what's going on?
So I was out there, I was being social, I was doing what most kids in their late teens, early 20s do. I recall working for my father at Southgate, Sylvania, in the lead up to the 2015 state election. That was the Mike Baird election. So you might recall Barry O'Farrell.
Yes.
He won the state election in a really decisive way in 2011. It was a landslide victory for the Liberals. He got busted with this bottle of wine donation. He resigned very, very suddenly, and Mike Baird came on the scene. And Mike Baird was electrifying back then. He was someone that picked up from where Barry had taken things, and in the view of many, was going to take the Liberal Party into the next stratosphere. So the campaign for the 2015 election was on, and I was working for my father at Southgate in Sylvania during the summer break. And I had a friend, a childhood friend. His name was Nick Smerdley. He actually lives opposite my yaya in Oatley. And he would come past the shop and make small talk with me. And he would say, Haris, I know you're in the Liberal Party. You should get more involved. And I was looking at him and I was looking at others and saying, look, Nick, I like you. I really do. You know I vote Liberal. You know I will always vote Liberal. But I don't really see this as something for me. And he said, no, man, you should try. I can introduce you to other people. You might like these other people. And I said, look, Nick, I don't know. But to Nick's credit, Nick stuck at me. He'd come past. He was campaigning for the candidate for Miranda back then, Eleni. And he would make an effort to stop by the shop and speak to me and convince me to get more involved. Eventually, I went out with him for a coffee or two. I went out and played pool with a few of the guys and girls, and he drew me in. And mind you, at the same time, this was happening as I was kind of falling out of love with journalism. I still will probably pursue some form of journalism in another capacity one day. I'll definitely want to make documentaries. Like, I haven't given up on that dream, but I don't know what it was. I didn't get that excitement from it that I thought I would. And I didn't get that sense of purpose, perhaps, that I ended up finding by pursuing this other career.
There you go. Now, whilst that was happening, you're working at the seafood
Mm-hmm.
place. You're doing some bits and pieces on with we're getting friendly with the liberal
Mhm.
group.
Mhm.
What else are you doing?
I'm working at the Ivy as a promoter, and I'm also
So what's that mean as a promoter? You just sell
Mhm.
tickets, or you there on the
Mhm.
night? What's going on?
a bit of both. So I was doing things for multiple different agencies, promoters, etc. Back then, to kickstart things, when the industry was much bigger too, you would submit a guest list. You don't do that now, on an Excel spreadsheet, and people would rock up, say, I'm on this guest list. Might be Harris's, it might be Ari's, and then their name will get ticked off. And for every name that got ticked off, I will get a $5 commission. I also had a discount code, and that discount code, whenever anybody plugged it through,
What was the discount code?
it was Harris2.
Harris 2. Try it this weekend.
So it wouldn't get you fired now, maybe 10 years ago, but it essentially led to me getting a commission for every person that passed through. So I recall Saturdays, my dad's business partner at the time, his name was Mario. I would say, Mario, can I go for lunch? I'm just going to get my laptop out and send my guest list. I would send my guest list, right? It'd be like 1:30 in the afternoon, and then my phone would be going crazy. The shop would be busy. And I'd say, Mario, do you mind if I jump out for 10 minutes? There's another group that want to come and get on my guest list tonight. And he would say, sure, no worries. And that was what my Saturdays looked like way back when I was 19, 20 years old. And then I would go home, freshen up, and I'd be out. You know what I was like back then. I was always out. Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Thursday night. I was out and about.
There you go. So you're still about 21 years old now.
Yeah.
22, what's going on?
I'm taking things a bit more seriously, actually. It's funny. In each juncture, after I finished school, I vividly recall moments where I said to myself, okay, you've done X, Y, Z. It's time to evolve. It's time to grow up a little bit. So I ended up taking the politics a little bit more seriously. I ended up looking for jobs in electorate offices. I ended up working a few other jobs full-time as well. I was maintaining swimming coaching, which I didn't mention before as well. I was working for my dad, and I was taking the events business more seriously. So I probably pulled back a bit on all the social stuff. And at that point, 22, 23 years old, I actually said to myself, okay, you're a young adult now. You've had some fun. You've gone overseas. Sort yourself out. And that's what I sought to do.
And what did that look like? How did that pan out?
It went well. It went well because I think I had no FOMO anymore. And because I had no FOMO, I had a lot of focus. And it doesn't matter who you are. If you have focus, and you can relate to this, you can achieve things. You can learn. You can build networks. And from there, eventually, the events business started with my brother.
Now, just on that topic of yourself getting into politics, one thing that I see, like I look at in Glazer was quite a young looking guy that's been elected. He's in charge there. How does that play, like being young and getting in there when you've got OGs that are 40, 50, 60?
Mm-hmm.
Do they look at you and say, like, listen, Junior, like, step aside? Like,
They did.
yeah, because you don't like someone to be in one of those positions. You expect them to be 40, 50, 60. So how does that, how does that work?
Just rewind a second. Which is a young person? Is it the candidate for Bennelong or is it the mayor?
There's a young guy, blonde hair.
Zach Miles.
Yeah, Zach Miles.
Yeah,
He
he's a
looks
machine.
young.
Yeah, he's a machine, Zach. He's the mayor. Yeah, great guy.
Is that Hunters Hill or in the West?
Hunters Hill.
Okay, he's young too.
Yeah, but Scott Jung is running for the seat of Bennelong.
Yes.
Which is in that same part of town.
Yeah.
He's very young. He's actually our age.
Crazy. And there
aren't many of us.
It's interesting because, again, to go take on like a 50-year-old, a 60-year-old that's just been around and the rest of it, mental. But I think we'll get into that a little bit more later. But we're 20. Was it 24 years old? You now with the. You
Mm.
reckon you can chuck your own event?
So I'm happy to answer your question more directly before, if you'd like,
Yeah, I reckon we're going to get to that. We're getting there. I got
Okay.
excited.
because it is quite a confrontational thing to do, to put yourself out there,
Yes.
especially when you don't have anybody in your personal life, in your family life, that is putting you on, for lack of better words, aside from some guy you knew when you're in primary school.
Yes.
I can talk about that now. If you want to know about the events, we can go there as well.
We're going to
Because
creep
it
up.
actually it actually happens at the same time.
Tell me about that. Looks like you come to a bit of a crossroad where.
It was a crossroads.
I mean, here's the thing. I think I called you Hannah Montana the other day.
Yeah, you did.
I go, bro, how are you running clubs by at night, and then during the day, you've got this whole other personality where you just lock in and you just it's like a whole nother thing.
I wouldn't say I have another personality though.
It's not personality, but it's the best of both worlds. Hannah Montana. That's how I describe it.
I'd like to say it's the best of both worlds, but if you know me,
Yes.
right, like you can understand how I'm in two worlds that appear to be very, very different from one another. My best friend, my compadre Eric, said, when I started going down the political route, and I've known Eric since I was in primary school too. He said it just makes sense that you do this. At the same time, other people can see why I'm in events because they know me. I'm quite a hospitable person. I love to socialize. I love music. I like to party every now and again. It makes sense. But yeah, I've got that aspect of who I am. At the same time, I can be very serious. I care about the world. I've got strong political views. We all have something in us that is a little bit serious. We'll have something in us that's a little bit fun.
Trela.
Yeah, a little bit.
Trela. So
little
trela, a lot of Greek men have it. So trela is when you got a bit of crazy side.
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. And I think there are skill sets that are relevant to both of my chosen paths that are really, really interconnected. You have to manage the public relations. You have to make sure people feel comfortable with the product you're selling, the message you're selling, the event you're selling. You have to be a person of substance. I think with the events, it would never have worked if my brother and I didn't have substance to what we do. At the same time, politically, people wouldn't listen to what I had to say unless they felt like I was a person of substance. I could go on and on and on. You have to put yourself forward as a leader if you want a business, right? Obviously, people in politics, they're perceived to be leaders. So, look, there are things that are interchangeable in both sectors. When I was young, at this crossroads we talked about before, I was nervous. I thought, geez, what are people going to think about me in the public or in politics if I have this side business? At the same time, I thought to myself, geez, what are people in the hospitality sector, in the events industry going to think about me if I am involved in politics? Eventually, I just came to the conclusion that, well, this is who I am. And after trying all these different things, after getting to know all sorts of different people, I had to accept that, well, these are the pathways that have presented themselves after 23 years or so of living. See how you go. It goes a little bit further too, but...
And again, you said it's whatever makes sense.
Mm.
And I like that because I think that, there's thousands of choices that, we make on a daily basis for all things. And sometimes or you just come at a crossroad. And I'm sure there's a probably point you've got politics and then you've got, running clubs, which is a whole thing. And you just went, it makes sense that I do both. And you did it.
And
So
look, I've always been the sort of person to carry multiple jobs. I've always been the sort of person that likes to stay busy. So it's never been an issue of working too hard. If I didn't stay busy, I would go a little bit mad. As well too, as I was building up in the Young Liberals, learning more and more about the party, learning more and more about Parliament, learning about the issues that I cared deeply about, I realized how much gratification I got from service, from politics. It really, really makes me tick, if that makes sense, right? It might sound like a selfish thing to say, but I get a lot out of service. At the same time, I knew I had this urge to pursue the events business. So I could not walk away from politics. That wasn't an option. But my brother, when he came to me with the idea of Olympus, it was his idea. I give him credit. He said to me, "Isn't this what you've always wanted to do?" That was what he said. He had to sell this to me. And when he said, "Isn't this what you always wanted to do?" And I heard it from my brother, the person that cares for me as much as anybody on this planet, the person that's always had my back. I said to myself, "Mate, what's the risk? What's the risk?" The risk is actually, if you don't pursue this, you not knowing what could have been. And I think regret in life often comes when you don't do stuff, not when you do stuff.
Yeah.
At least for me.
Now it makes sense. So tell us how Olympus started.
I'll tell you part of the story.
I want the if the story's unlocked. It's real. It's raw.
All right.
So don't give me no fluffy story. Like, give me the real. How did it start?
Okay, so I obviously had my background in events, in nightlife. I understood how the industry worked. I understood what a good night looked like. I also loved Greek music. To this day, I love Greek music. My brother was heavily involved in the Greek societies at university, and he ended up throwing awesome events and building up a really good youth network with the Greek community. Myself, I was less so in that Greek community. As a youngster, I was someone that was friends with people from all walks of life. Liberal, Greek, sport, you name it. So an opportunity came. He was approached to run an event at a nightclub, and he came to me, and I said, "I think I can do it." At the time, I was working for, I won't say who, a very senior politician in their electorate office, and I thought, this is going to embarrass my boss, this is going to cause a ruckus. And a part of the condition I had for TAS when starting this business was, I don't want anyone to know that I'm doing this. My close friends can know, my family can know, but I don't want this public. So I still had that trepidation, that fear. And he said, "Okay, so you want to be low-key?" I said, "Yeah, let's be low-key." So we came out, we contacted people in our intimate close network to bring a promoter team together. I had a really good network of DJs that I'd known through the years just through being a bit social. People like Peter Kolistasis, DJ PK. He DJ'd my Year 10 formal. Chris Parrow went to university with my brother. Dimitri Deepen, I'd seen him DJ.
Dimitri Deepen,
Yeah,
what a
yeah,
name.
yeah.
Dimitri Deepen.
Yeah,
Shout out
yeah.
to Dimitri
Yeah,
Deepen.
no, Deepen has, and this is crazy, right? Deepen's DJ'd, I think, every single Olympus since way back then.
Mad.
And it wasn't hard to put together a lineup. Greg Buzuki,
I like that name.
So Greg, Georgiou, he worked at the fish shop back then.
Okay.
And he played the bouzouki as well. So Greg had played the bouzouki at my 21st, my brother's 21st. We loved Greg, and we contacted Greg. So it wasn't an issue getting entertainment. In regards to promoters, we had a good network of friends that we trusted, that we knew, that we brought on board. The catch was that we had 10 days to put together this event, to sell this event. And it was the 1st of April, 2018. So we had to promote it hard and fast, but I didn't want to pull myself out there. So we hit the ground, and we built this team, we built this lineup, we had everybody promoted. And at the time, there were no Greek events for young people. It was just a thing of the past. Eventually, look today, like, there's a lot of different sort of events for young Greek people, but we kind of kickstarted the trend. And
well, I don't know anybody else that does Greek events. Maybe a one-off.
yeah,
But you hear Olympus consistently pop up.
yeah,
As a brand.
we've been consistent for a number of years now. So kicked off, and it went well.
What was the first?
It exceeded all our expectations, really.
Where was the first?
It was at the club in King's Cross.
That was across from is it got Flamingo?
Underneath.
Underneath, that's
Yeah.
right. Wow. Was that surreal? Did
It
you
was
just
chockers.
like at one stage walk in the club, look up, see the crowd pumping, and go, "What the fuck have I created?"
Yeah, it was kind of crazy, and I actually should give a shout out to a few people. So another one of my good friends, Costa Nickus Plumbing. Shout out to Nickus Plumbing. He's the most handy bloke you'll ever meet in your life. We walked into the club and we saw this dance floor that was carpet, and we said we can't be doing this. We can't be having a carpet dance floor, and we went and visited Bunnings, purchased a bunch of plywood, and actually created a wooden dance floor by taping plywood together on the dance floors. Really hands on back then. We had friends like Steve Cassiu, James Spanner, Billy Stavros, Phil, and everyone helped us out in a really, really big way. It was like the start of a business journey, but at the same time, it was a lot of fun with friends.
100%.
And
100%.
yeah, those first few years were probably the most fun because we were all so young. It was a big rush. Everyone was a part of it. We weren't motivated by making money. We were motivated by putting on a really, really good show. And that sounds very corny and it sounds very cliche and it sounds like something that you've heard a lot of people say over the years. But if you knew us and you were around in that era, you knew that we were trying to put on a show. We were trying to put on a spectacle. We had 5 performers in the venue. I know where this is going to go. We had snakes in the venue. We had a ridiculous amount of entertainers, all these different concepts in the way we themed the place. Like our whole ordeal was to go all out and to leave people with an experience that they feel like they got bang for buck for, and to leave people with an experience where they can turn around and say, you know what, being Greek and going to a Greek nightclub event isn't a whack or corny thing. Because going to Greece, right, you get to experience some of the most incredible nightlife events, like, period. But for whatever reason, for a long period of time, going to a Greek event, at least when we were younger, was something that wasn't especially cool to do. And our whole thing was we're going to get the best looking people, the coolest people, the best DJs, and go to the best clubs and put on a show. So eventually we took it to Ivy Pool, took it to the Ivy Courtyard, and I mean, you know how it goes.
Yeah. You know, one thing I realized in Greece, there is a really, really strong drinking culture in Australia. And when I go to Greece, what I realize is you get a group of dudes, 2 of them, you see them. They might grab a beer. They'll sit there. They'll put it there. And then they'll walk off. And they'll go, it's about something else, having a bit of fun, picking up, whatever it may be. That's how it is for them. They left the beer there, half full. It's not about getting plastered. It's not about getting plastered over there. It's different. It's different the way it is. Where here I found, you know, I find like it's who can drink the most, who can get the most plonko. And it's different. I mean, that's fun, but it's different in the way they roll there in Greece. It's about the Riz, it's about the this, it's about the that. They're sleeker, they're smoother.
They're far more composed.
Yeah, they are. And the way they dress up, it's a totally different whole thing.
Far more composed and far more relaxed.
But each to their own. I mean, yeah. I'm sure if you went to Mykonos, that's just Sydney. That's just Sydney.
Mykonos
you walk around,
not
you're
the
like,
real Greece.
Yeah.
It's not the real Greece. It's outlandish. It's extravagant. The Greeks in Greece, you're right. They're very relaxed. They're very chill. They're composed, smooth. Us Aussies, even us Greek Aussies, we're out there. It's different. Binge drink. We party very, very hard. It's a different culture altogether. But that's probably what excited me the most about our Ivy Pool events. Our Ivy Pool events were probably the closest experience here in Sydney that we've been able to deliver that mirrors the Greek scene in Greece. Those events were far more chill, far more cool. Downstairs in the change room area, you had a little bit more party, a little bit more oomph. But by the pool club, that was that was chill, man. It was relaxed. It was fun.
Very
but
cool,
not
man.
too in your face, which I liked. My favorite events have been the first few pool club events.
There you go. And you're telling me you are the co-founder, director of Olympus, and you haven't met your future wife at one of these events. Come on, man. You just
Maybe I have.
should be on the. Maybe you have.
Maybe I have, but we're not seeing each other right now.
Well, shout out to
Man,
Harris's.
how did you not meet?
Harris's future ex-wife.
How did you not? How did you not meet your missus or your future missus at one of those Olympus events? You went to a few.
Yeah, I went to a few. I remember one, and it's real, it's raw, it's stories unlocked, and I'm gonna. It was a funny. I mean, you had entertainers. Did you use excess events at all?
Not when there were excess events. We used series of events.
Series of events when it was
and
Joe.
we've done some really, really cool stuff together. I mean, what we were able to do
Make
in
sure
the
you
Ivy
use them
Courtyard.
they're the best in the biz. You make sure you use excess events.
I think I've been using them before you. I think
so.
I've had a long,
I think so.
long
We had
working
Joe on the
relationship with
podcast
Joe.
here. There, he's
Man,
a
Joe
gun.
is a great guy.
He's a gun. He'll make
Yeah.
anything happen.
Yeah.
But including I was there. You know, I was out in the city and went, holy crap, Olympus is on. And it's like, no way, it's going to be booked out. And I flicked the text to somebody like, no, I got you covered. I got a couple of tickets for you. We rocked up. We're kicking back with my mate, and my mate wasn't Greek. He's freaking out, like, what's going on? Like, there was just like indoors, fire breathers, the whole thing. Like, you guys are pushing limits. And that's what I liked, because there's this Greek mentality. When you go to Greece, the way they jump in their motorbikes, the way they roll around, there's also I don't give a fuck attitude. And I felt that when I was in there. Everyone was partying, everyone was having a good time. But a fire breather, I mean, this is going to be the fire breather's fault. He sat there instead of outdoors, whatever, but he off goes the water.
Correct.
And to be honest, like, I've been out a gazillion times, but that night I'll never forget in my life. It had Geffy. People were cheering, people were laughing, the water was coming out. It was a whole thing, and you never forget it. It was something else. I'm sure you would have had a different experience, but I'll never forget that night.
Look, at the time, it was very embarrassing because we took a lot of pride in what we were doing, and we had momentum. We had a good reputation. We still had a good reputation.
I think that's PR. It's like that crazy house.
Well, that's how it ended up being.
Yes.
It ended up building our street cred because of what we did afterwards, I believe.
Yes.
But at the time when chaos is erupting, obviously, I was thinking to myself, this is a disaster. But nothing is ever as quite bad as what it seems.
Yeah. One of those things again, it's a talking point. It's a talking point. And I'll never forget it. That was a mad night.
Well, thank you.
Bravo, Haris. That was a mad night.
Thank you. I'm glad it was a night that you'll never forget. But, man, you know what we did?
Yeah.
We knew that, obviously, the night was cut short. So we threw a free event, essentially, for all ticket holders that went to that event. And I think by doing so, like, we built up that customer loyalty and respect in the community that we've seen carry us through for many years now. It was one of the best things we could have possibly done. Tass and I knew that we had to look after people. We had to do the right thing. It was just a matter of how.
I personally didn't think nothing of it. I just thought, what a night.
Man, I wish everybody was as easygoing as you, because whilst I love the Greek community, we wouldn't have built what we have today, which now is delving into other forms of businesses, investments, and opening up other doors. But it would never have started if it wasn't for the Greek community. But as much as I love the Greek community, they can be very, very difficult to satisfy sometimes, which is part of the motivation when it comes to how we are always trying to level up.
Well, you know, something that I saw the other day, you were promoting another event. It was an indoors, a mad venue. Can't remember the venue, but open the door, out comes Matty George. I'm going, he's Lebo. Olympus, what's going on here?
Man. So
it's like you've now jumped into, because if you get with Matty, he's going to tell all his cousins, and in it comes type thing. So tell us, multicultural now.
Yeah, look, Olympus over the years, as it got bigger and bigger, it attracted people from different walks of life. It attracted people from Lebanese descent, Slavic descent, Anglo-Saxon descent, Italian descent. I mean, we've had...
And the Aussies, eh?
Yeah, the Aussies, yeah. We've had some events at Ivy Courtyard that have had up to 2,000 plus people on Boxing Day. In regards to Matty George's, I mean, that guy, he is as big a part of the Olympus story as anybody else. The work he has done to support us has been absolutely incredible. I am so grateful to that guy. Matty, we love you. Thank you for putting up with us. Thank you for always being there and being so loyal. Appreciate it. Actually, Matty was there that night where we had our little crisis, and he helped us deal with the PR off the back of all that. And I think if it wasn't for Matty helping us smoothen things over, we wouldn't have come out of it stronger than ever.
There you go.
So shout out to Matty G Encore Collective, the best in the game at what he does.
He is.
Very, very grateful for everything you do.
And if you haven't heard his podcast yet, story's unlocked.
He's a good guy,
you know what's funny? I just posted a story of us on set.
Yeah.
I've got a couple of messages with people going, "Holy crap, Haris is on." I got Daniel here from Fruit Easy.
That's how you going, Daniel?
So Daniel's popped up. Great episode with Haris. He's G'd. There you go.
Well, I haven't really put myself out there much over the years. It's been something I've been struggling to do for whatever reason. I'm very happy to promote a political party, to stand for something that I believe in, to advocate for an issue. I'm very happy to work on an event, to promote an event, to create a big party. For whatever reason, Ari, it's been a little bit of a challenge for me when it comes to profiling myself politically over the last few years.
Well, this is good. I mean, you forget that there's 3 cameras and 27 lights and a screen and the audio visual too over there and
what's going on, Tio?
You forget the surroundings because we're just having a conversation and that's what it's all about. But okay, 24 years old, Olympus is popping. To now, I mean, you're 29 now.
Turning 30 very, very soon.
We're born on the same day,
That's
March
right.
29th, 1995.
Correct.
What is with that? Now, what's happened in between that period?
A lot. I have had challenges both politically and in the events business. I focus much more on a day-to-day basis on politics, and of a night time, I'll typically delve into
So we
what
say
we
politics.
do with events.
Right now, you council member in Sutherland Shire, Cronulla.
Correct. I'm a councillor on the Sutherland Shire Council.
Okay. For the people, I know it's probably very normal to you, but what do you do on a daily basis? You wake up, what do you do?
Okay. So local government,
Yep.
council deals with all things in the way of planning, in the way of local roads, in the way of your basic community and lifestyle recreational services, so sports clubs, surf clubs, rivers, etc. And it's my job as a councillor to advocate for the community in the best way I see fit when sitting on that board. So we'll vote on master plans for local parks. We'll vote on the budget for the local council and where all of their investment as a council goes towards. We'll vote on the zonings of an area. So think rates, rezonings, recreation, rubbish. It's my job to do my best for the community in servicing their views, their needs, their wants.
And how many people need to vote to get a park over the line?
Okay, so the Sutherland Shire Council has 15 councillors.
Okay.
In order to achieve a majority, you need 8 votes.
Okay. So that's not many
I'm
people.
one of the 8.
Okay.
I hope to be one of the 8 because I want my majority to get up every time. But no, I'm one of the 15 councillors. This is my second term on council. So I was first elected in 2021, in December, and I was recently elected again in September last year. So I'm a young, experienced councillor, I guess you could say. Not experienced like many, many others, but I am a 2-termer.
And something that I always kind of see with individuals in politics is you just can't please everyone.
That's right.
So let's say you approve the park, where you're going to have all these certain families that are happy, and then all the people around it are going to say those bloody council members. How do you deal with? I mean, you get the social pressures. I'm sure you're going to get individuals that just like, nah, he's, and then you get the other side. Like, how do you not take that on?
It's not easy. I think if you have a glass jaw and you put yourself into these sort of situations.
I thought you were going to say if you have a glass of ouzo.
No. Like if you're not tough, if you're not mentally prepared, it will eat you alive. Yeah. And people can be extremely rude, extremely defamatory, extremely disrespectful, but it's a very, very small minority. The vast majority of people will actually turn around and say, you know what, don't agree with what you're doing there, mate, but I get it. And I think that social media can often blow up the community's view on an issue compared to being out there on the ground in real life. There have been times where I've seen some people say some things and I feel like, man, I got to respond. But, you pull back and you, as a person that's in the public arena, have to conduct yourself with a level of maturity and decency that can be difficult. And yeah, it's not a conventional thing to say, but a lot of people in politics do struggle with their mental health because of the pressure they get from community, because of the pressure they get on some big issues, because of their anxiety. And I think that anyone that wants to put themselves forward has to be really realistic with themselves. It's not for the faint-hearted.
Yeah. There you go. I got so many questions. We're gonna go down a real big rabbit hole. But the first time you got elected, how'd that go down?
It was kind of surreal.
It's like Euro 2004.
Not quite. Look, I got on to council after being in the Liberal Party for some period of time. I'd worked for multiple MPs and had some really, really good mentors. I got on there thinking, oh, geez, I'm young. I'm the youngest. I don't know how I'm going to be able to do this. Is it going to be too much? Like, whilst I put myself forward and I had ideas and vision, there was that little voice in the back of my head that was saying, dude, you could be out of your depth. But it was very reassuring to know that everything that people had said to me that had been there and done that in the way of mentors had ended up serving its purpose. And I really have been very fortunate to have had some very good people back me up and guide me in those formative years to get me to the point where I feel like I'm at now. And, being a young councillor, people will immediately assume you're mature. They'll immediately assume you've got no life experience.
And you probably get hit with the arrogant, the cocky, young. He's in there. He's in the position. You're a target.
Yeah. Look, people come in with preconceived ideas of who you are, what you stand for.
Yeah.
It can also be a thing being a young ethnic person in politics. People might scratch their head a little bit and be like, oh, it's a funny looking last name. But, mate, all in all, I have to say, the vast majority of people have been very, very good to me, very receptive. When I haven't agreed with someone or someone on a particular issue, it hasn't gone down in flames. There have been some challenges along the way. We're always going to have debate and it's going to be spirited, but that's democracy. And if people can't express themselves, if people can't say how they feel, then, I'm not respecting the democratic process. So, I accept that people aren't going to agree with everything I do, but at the same time, I know that that's a part of the process. So I accept it, and actually a part of me appreciates it. And you learn to massage these sort of issues. There are people that will disagree with you on one thing but agree with you on another.
Yeah.
And if I was out there on the sidelines, I'd probably have an opinion on what I was doing myself.
No, certainly. There's just so many views. You cannot you cannot please everyone.
No, never.
You can't. And obviously you've got a target on you. 26 years old when you're elected.
Mm-hmm.
How's that stack up to the other young ones out there? Who's the youngest that it's ever?
I think the youngest councillor ever was the current mayor, Jack Boyd, when he first got elected, which was a little bit younger than me. I think he was 24 or 25 years old. So, look, there weren't many councillors as young as what I was, and it's very rare to find young councillors. I think it's important that we have young people in politics because...
Why?
Well, ultimately, it's our future that we're seeking to shape. And if you're going to have a really, really good representative council, you need people from all walks of life, and that includes young people. You need women, you need people from small business sector. I believe you need people that represent the broader constituency. So I love seeing young people in politics, like I love seeing young people in business.
Yeah. How do you think social media will impact politics in the next 10 years?
Well, I think that we're going to continue to go down this road where you have people that are great with their buzzwords, they're great with their sales pitch, but lack substance rising to the ranks. And that's because once upon a time, like I recall as a kid, I would read the paper. I would educate educate myself on an issue in quite a slow, measured, methodical way. Right now, we're in an era where TikTok is compelling the masses, and funny little videos are swaying the political agenda.
Yeah.
Like, I actually am a little bit concerned that we're going to have people that are less focused on evidence, less focused on like critically assessing an issue when it comes to how they vote, and more people becoming preoccupied with personalities, the glitz and the glamour. And you're kind of seeing that happen a little bit in America, a little bit in Europe.
100%. Like, you know, I remember when Trump first got elected, I couldn't wait to wake up the next morning. What dumb thing has he said this morning? It's good. It was entertaining.
Yeah.
Oh, he said something about this. Oh, he said something about this. Oh, he said that. And now he got elected again. It's kind of like, yes, you had Biden, you had Obama, you had all those individuals, but the theater in politics, I don't remember. Maybe I was too young, but I don't remember theater being such a big thing.
No, not in the 21st century. In years prior, of course. But in the Western world, we've yet to see such an enigma in the way of Trump and others, where they just compel the masses through slogans and through
WWE.
Very comical and very charismatic. And I'm not trying to say that everything that Trump is doing is bad. It's not that. It's his style. And the replicas that we're seeing pop up in the way of his style. And it's not just on the right, it's on the left as well. Like I'm seeing more and more people that are trying to demonize others through social media, through slang and slogans and even funny dances. I'm quite conservative in the sort of person that I like as a politician. I like someone that's very well read. I like someone that's very well researched. I like someone that could prosecute a point in a way that is backed up by substance, ideals, ideology, and I like someone that is a steady, stable pair of hands. That's just me. But we all like different things.
And that makes sense. That's the logical thing to do if you're going to have decision makers. You want them to be as diplomatic, as logical, and yes, you're not going to please everyone, but I mean, I guess a lot of these decisions that get made in politics, I mean, you got to think long term, but then you got to think short term, but then you think that side, but then you think that side, and you know, you can make a decision, make everyone happy, but then it's going to 10 years time, that decision can rupture society.
Exactly. And I think that you will probably look to the housing crisis of today and say, well, you know, this is so bad. It's up to the Min's government to fix it. It's up to the federal government to fix it. But the housing crisis, this has been something that stems back to probably 20 years ago in the way of how we're seeing this shortfall in housing availability at the same time we're enduring record levels of immigration. It's a legacy issue combined with a new issue in the way of a tremendous amount of immigration into the country. So you're right, Ari. Sometimes, making an unpopular decision, perhaps in the way of rezoning an area to allow for more development, to allow for more housing for future generations. 20 years ago, that might have been very, very unpopular. And 20 years ago, you would have had totally different MPs across the entire council, state, country, etc. But that's the sort of decision maker that I would trust, one that thinks 20, 30, 40, 50 years ahead.
Yeah.
Obviously, you want leaders that will make decisions for today.
Yeah.
But I don't like the idea that we'll live in a world where you've got narrow-minded, short-term thinkers potentially getting into politics because they're charismatic and they know how to do a TikTok dance and understand what's popping. If they're like that, man, they should come and work for you.
Yeah. Well, whatever decision you make on that board, you're going to have people that are gonna call you a prick.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna
It happens. It happens, man.
Well, you're going to have
It
people that
happens.
you're going to piss off, and then you're going to have people think, and you've just got to be logical and diplomatic, and you use intuition. You use intuition.
Always.
Yeah.
You have to think things through and think ahead.
How does intuition? I mean,
So
you got logic and facts, but intuition. How does that work?
So I think you have to appreciate that with certain things, could be a master plan for a park, you're going to look at disruption to the natural environment, right? And in virtue of a potential master plan, which would appease a soccer club, hypothetically, you're going to come across people that are very sensitive to environmental issues down the track, perhaps having an issue, and then you have to balance, well, is this going to be too much of an issue for the environment? Let's see where this goes. And I think as you walk your way down the public policy decision-making process, you have to be really cognizant of those different factors. At the same time, you have to be mindful of, again, the long-term ramifications of the decisions you make. So I guess it's about valuing each little community group, each aspect of a site-specific issue, and making a well-informed and deliberate decision. You know, you use the word diplomatic, but sometimes you have to be very deliberate. And sometimes you have to stare someone right in the eyes and say, I'm very sorry.
I'm building that park. Building that park.
Potentially. But then again, you have to do your research and your due diligence.
Of
Like
course.
there'll be times where I'll say, well, geez, we can't do this. So you pull back. There'll be other times where I'll be like, look, no, the potential issues to the park aren't anywhere near as bad as what that particular member in the community is saying. I'm going to respectfully disagree with them, and I'm going to see this through. And I think as a young person, one thing people will always question is whether that kid has the guts. And if I were to put a message out to anybody out there that is interested in pursuing politics, you have to have guts. Like, there comes a time where you cannot compromise, you cannot walk backward, you have to see through a decision if you really know it to be true. And there's a difference between knowing and believing. If you know that that decision is the right decision, you have to pursue it. You have to. Otherwise, what's the point of being there?
Now, I could be crossing the line here.
Let's see.
I hope I haven't done it yet. But you get a lot of individuals in politics which could be very passionate about one ideal that might not particularly be the most popular amongst the masses, or you're in the middle. It could be, I don't know, a paperless society that will ruffle feathers, but you believe in it. It could be, women shouldn't compete in men's sports because of the biological. Is there one ideal which it's going to piss people off, but it's the right thing? Not people. Yeah, you've got these ideals out there that people just passionate about.
Is there one ideal that I have?
You have that you were just passionate about that.
Okay.
Yeah, you're going to piss people off, but that's what I think.
Okay. There's one that immediately comes to mind. And it's very unconventional as a liberal.
I want to hear it.
I believe Australia should become a republic one day.
Tell us about that.
So at the moment, we're a part of the monarchy. Our system is a constitutional monarchy, and we have an allegiance to the king.
Yes.
This stems back to how modern Australia was founded. I believe that Australia is so far developed, it's so far advanced, and it's become so strong in its own right that we should seek to establish ourselves as a republic. I believe that the nation we know it to be today is so independent from the UK, despite having those inherent Westminster systems of government, despite everybody here speaking English, despite having an undeniable British linked history. I believe that in the future, after we get through the cost of living crisis, when we start flourishing again, we should revisit becoming a republic again.
I know that they can come in and just get rid of a prime minister.
Correct.
what else can they do? Which is just like, I don't know if that is really politically correct in maybe back then, but not now. Like, what other powers do they do, which is just ridiculous?
So I'm going to present to you the classic argument of someone who would disagree with me.
Okay.
Well, the king or potential queen of the day, they can't really do much. Sure, they can step in and knock off Gough Whitlam, but
Yes.
they can't really do much. It's a symbolic position. The king or queen, should it be the queen, being the head of state in this country. The head of state, why shouldn't it be the queen? Why shouldn't it be the king? What's the big deal? For me, I actually see the symbolism in having a foreign head of state as not being a good thing. I think if Australia is to be as ambitious as what I would hope it to be, we should have an Australian head of state. What sort of great nation in all of history, a nation as great as what Australia is, the lucky country, the most successful multicultural nation on the planet, if not throughout the entire history of the world.
The universe. Not
Yes.
the planet, the universe.
Which state have you known to have had a foreign head of state? Which nation have you known to have had a foreign head of state? Like for me, I believe anything that a Pommy can do, an Aussie can do better.
I
Why
believe so too.
would we not just, instead of having the Queen or the King on top and the Governor General, have the Governor General of the day be our head of state? That's the question I have to ask people. And yeah, often people on the left wing, obviously I'm centre right, I'm a liberal, would typically agree with me. This is a stance you typically find unconventional in the Liberal Party, but it's the patriot in me. It's the person that sees us as a really special nation in me that just leads me to believe that we can stand on our own too as an Australia, with an Australian head of state. And it's not because I dislike the UK. It's not that at all. It's the love I have for Australia and the belief that I have in the future of this country.
And I like that. I mean, it shows character when you basically have the balls to come out and make an unpopular statement, and just say, well, that's what I believe, so I'm gonna say it.
Ari, before I told you why I joined the Liberal Party through the context of where I was at, but I didn't really tell you why I was a Liberal. And I want to tie it to why I believe we should become a republic one day. And Menzies, the founder of the Liberal Party, he spoke about creating a party for the aspirational Australian, for the forgotten people, for the people that were out there working hard to support their families.
The forgotten people.
So in Menzies' great big oration that he's known for, the same way Martin Luther had his I Have a Dream speech, Menzies had his Forgotten People speech, where he spoke about the quiet Australians or the battlers out there that were trying their best to make ends meet and having an ambition for themselves, for their family, to live in a harmonious society where they have limited government intervention, so less taxes, less policing in their day-to-day lives, and more freedom to go out there and achieve whatever they like. To go out there, set up a business, run it well, run it good, and have the support of a government, not getting involved, but by a government supporting them by knowing that a person should be able to do what they see fit with the money they make, versus a government taking that money from them in the way of high taxes and then spending their money through other means. I'm very, very big on limited government intervention. I'm very, very big on people being able to set up their dream, pursue the business that they see fit, and essentially live with limited government intervention in their day-to-day lives. I'm very big on free speech, and I've always been that way. So, if we rewind a little bit, I think it's really important to put that out there. Like, I always held these views, but I never saw myself as the sort of person that would be out there advocating that sort of a political view in the form of representative government.
Well, that's a great explanation, because they don't tell you about that stuff back in school, which is odd. Like, you see it pop up. It's
Mm.
Labor versus Liberal.
Mm.
It's blue versus red.
Mm.
And okay, those guys, yeah, they're good for business, and then go guys, okay, not so good for business. And that's like the
Mm.
explanation that you
Mm.
just that's the pop culture of
Mm.
it all. But hearing that, and it makes a lot of sense. It's like a push pull type thing.
A little bit.
How, where does that leave? Employees per se.
Mm.
If it's favor to the business owner to have them virtually prosper.
Mm.
Does that become unfair? Tell me about that.
Well, I think that's where you have to deploy a level of common sense and have sensitivity to the plight of your everyday worker. You haven't seen productivity increase. Now, fundamentally, if we scale it back and talk about the economy, in order to be able to have a more prosperous economy where people are paid better, you need to focus on the business making money first. You need to have productivity. Now, you would understand that being a business.
Yes.
So what comes first? What comes first? The business or the employee?
Well, if there's no business, then you can't pay the employee. But you just hope that the business owner puts the money back into the company to grow it and not go out and go to Vegas.
Correct. Now,
that's right.
Yeah, but that's fundamentally like my answer to your question. Inherently,
it goes back into the business, and you can pay, and you can think, and you can prosper.
In order for people to get paid well, the business needs to be productive.
Yes,
and I believe that's what this country has been built off: small business. And small business starts with a dream. It starts with a forgotten person having that opportunity to grow. I mean, you spoke about my father. He came from real poverty. I've seen it. It's hard out there. When he came here, he wasn't given much, not at all. But eventually, the same way your parents have, the same way Teo's parents have, they were able to build a life for themselves here. And that is, I believe, thanks to the opportunity that exists. And that opportunity isn't just for small business and for people that want to make a lot of money or be entrepreneurs. Like, it also exists in the way of jobs. And jobs are created by virtue of having a business, unless you work in the government, right? So, yeah, I'm not the sort of liberal that is just so black and white on these issues that I defy logic, right?
Yes.
Like, I believe in a minimum wage. Yes. I believe in work health safety standards.
Of course.
And people should be paid appropriately for the work they do. They should be paid on time.
But we talk about there hasn't been a wage increase.
Wage growth.
Wage growth, yep.
There's a difference.
Okay, tell me about wage growth versus wage increase.
So naturally, there will be a wage increase indexed through, whatever, exactly right. But real wage growth is when people are making an extra additional amount of money in a tremendous way.
So on top of inflation. Anything on top of inflation is wage growth, got it.
And at the same time, you're seeing that trend stagnate whilst the cost of living is becoming harder and harder.
Yes.
And sadly, we're living in a time, like we talked about at dinner, where things are harder compared to how they were 10 or so years ago.
But, we talk about that. How do you solve that? Like, if you were to increase all wages, minimum wage, or whatever it may be, by 5% right now, businesses everywhere would be shutting down.
Yeah, exactly right.
People are struggling out there just to break even.
Exactly right.
They're just hanging on. So how do you solve that one?
I want to lean forward for this one. Tia's looking at me like I'm vandalizing the material. Have I done something wrong?
He's good. You're going to move that. You know why? I'll tell you a little bit of trick about that. Okay, you know why I have this? Okay.
Stop me spitting on it?
Yeah, well, especially us Greek. Right?
So
watch this for the great. Ready? That
that bit. Muffle.
So the
Yeah, now I don't want to lean so
you ever up on stage, you want to go p?
Yeah.
Before you say p, you take p, and then you go back.
Okay.
Yeah, away from the mic. Because we like the p. But spitting in Greek is actually, if you look and you get the auntie that will go p, p, they'll spit on the baby, that scares the devils away. Protects the devils. If Greek spits on you, it's a good thing.
How do they attract the angels, Ari?
I don't know if you can do that. You can just get away the devils. That's why we also smash plates, because that scares away the devil. So if you're at a cafe and chef drops a plate, you say "Opa," and it's a good thing. When they freak out, say, "No, it's good. It's good luck."
Mm.
All right. Anyway, sorry, we're on a topic.
So you were talking about
How do you solve it? Okay, so if everyone increases their salaries by 5% tomorrow,
Mhm.
um,
In the corporations are
across
less
everywhere, yeah.
they're less productive. Taxes remain the same. Naturally, corporations will be forced to either number one,
Close their doors.
or close their doors, or work with less margins. Corporations,
Ugh.
businesses, etc. And then it becomes that fine line where you're going to see these things close. So, look, everyone's got a different value set. Mine is one that I've built based on my real world experience, based on the story we told before, growing up in that small business, getting a taste for what it takes to build a business, what it takes for a business to not do so well, and appreciating that out there for people to get a job, for people to make a living. My experience working in a small business from a very young age has really shaped my values, and it's given me real world appreciation for what small business can do for people. Not just people that own those small businesses, but people that work in those small businesses. Small businesses eventually becoming medium-sized businesses, potentially even becoming bigger-sized businesses. You're right, Ari. At this point in time, we're seeing a lot of businesses close. We're seeing a lot of businesses struggle, and people are struggling to make ends meet. In order to fix that, well, you need creativity. You need intuition. You need the economy to allow for people to bring forward their ideas and feel comfortable engineering startups, evolving what they're doing. We're seeing a lot of people take their ideas overseas. I mean, you would know a lot of people that have gone to the Gulf nations, for example, Qatar, Saudi Arabia,
taxes,
Dubai.
wink,
Taxes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a big thing. I mean, recently we had the UFC here, and a lot of people were talking about how much tax they had to pay in order to do business here. At the same time, you've had people in California leave California, move to Texas because of the taxes in the States.
Makes sense.
So that's, in a very roundabout way, what led me to sticking at it with the Liberal Party.
There you go. Now I'm going to throw something else controversial at you.
All right, here we go.
Well, you're on Stories Unlocked.
Yeah,
This
let's
is
do it,
raw,
man.
It's real. You can't go anywhere. all
Let's
right?
do it. You just got a
Yeah,
very
if he goes to run, block him. All right.
yeah, you've got a very cheeky look in your eye, Ari.
It's going to be a controversial one, but
Mhm.
let's run it. Cameras are rolling. We're live. We're raw. It's Stories Unlocked. This whole housing crisis, and it's bad. It hurts.
Mhm.
Do you have property?
No.
I don't have property. I don't get it, man. I don't get it. I look at it and I'm like, it's impossible.
It's very hard right now.
It's next to impossible. And from what I hear, a little bit of news, hearing a little bit the way other people speak, the Chinese have destroyed it. They're just blaming China. Chinese, they come all the money, they make billions, they come in and they buy everything. Is that right?
I don't think that's entirely true. I think
We like to blame
that,
someone, don't we?
Yeah.
We like to
and often xenophobia can play a big role in people's worldviews. People like to blame people. People like to blame foreigners. It's happened for many, many years. I don't think it's because the Chinese are buying everything. It's actually harder than ever for someone from China to buy in Australia. Foreign investment, I think that was something that the Morrison government made a bit more difficult a few years ago now.
That was an unpopular decision, wasn't it?
Look, it wasn't. I think the biggest issue for housing in Sydney stems from how poor the economy is right now. It's never been a harder time to build. In order to deal with the housing supply issue, you have to build more. It's basic economics, supply and demand. We have a lack of supply. We have a lack of supply because builders and developers aren't out there building. And
I feel like the Lebanese are going crazy on their bills.
well, that's the
Maybe it's
perception.
because it's half my clients.
That's the perception.
But I feel like they are,
Well,
the population's obviously growing too quick.
yeah, that's another thing too. So I was going to get to that. As we have a growing population, we need to accommodate them with more and more housing. And you would hope that as
I was
more
going to say
people come
protection. Slow it down. It's too much.
in- No, well, like we need more housing.
Yes.
And if we're going to grow, and people are going to buy their first homes, there needs to be that availability. And if there's a tremendous amount of supply and a lesser demand, obviously the cost of their housing will be cheaper.
Yeah.
We're not seeing that. And also, you've got a lot of people in Sydney that are happy where they live and they don't want to move further out from home, further out west, northwest, southwest.
True.
And that's a challenge as well.
So yeah, because I was listening to bits and pieces. The Chinese, they come, they buy a house, and they just park the money there. No one lives in it. You get these waterfront properties, and no one lives in it. It's just the Chinese, and that's the reason now we can't get a house.
I don't believe that to be the case. I think there's far bigger economic issues that have made it more difficult for people to buy a property. I also think that it's a big issue of immigration. Our immigration levels are ridiculous right now. And I mean, we have immigrant backgrounds. Immigrants have essentially made modern Australia what it is. But that immigration we're seeing, it's too high. It's not sustainable at this point.
I got another one for you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so controversial again.
Ari's controversial questions.
This is what it's turned. The story's unlocked, and I've just pinned him with the all the good stuff. But when it comes to immigration, how does it work? Do we like pick and choose cultures? Can we have 1 million South Americans? They're pretty good with the workforce, educate. Can we have 1 million of those? Do we pick? How does it work?
We strike arrangements with different nations.
Okay. And do we look for things about who we're
Yeah,
gonna live?
always.
Yeah.
It's actually harder to become an Australian than what it is to become a citizen of another country. The same way it's hard to get a visa to come to
Okay.
Australia and work. It's
Is there a nation that we're like preferring right now? Like we want more of those?
look, off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you, but we do have a very good relationship with India when it comes
Yep.
to immigration, and New Zealand.
New Zealand?
New Zealand, we've historically had a very high amount of immigrants.
There's not many of them.
Yeah, but there's a lot in Australia.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot. England as well.
Yep. English.
I couldn't really tell you, Ari.
You know, it's a
Otherwise-
blessing getting individuals from other countries because I feel like they bring in a breath of fresh air into this nation, especially when it comes to work ethic. And let's talk about that. We look at chefs. We look at all the hard work. Can't get the Aussies to do it. If you look at a cross section, the majority, you want to go into a cafe, a restaurant, you know, the directors will tell you they just can't do it. And you get these individuals come in, they're skilled, they're focused, they're hungry. And without them, things would collapse. It was a massive problem during COVID.
Yeah, it
where
was.
you people couldn't get people to work.
And I think in the hospitality sector, you saw it first, where people were looking for workers that were happy to do those sort of jobs. Your quintessential born and bred Aussie wasn't interested.
Yes.
And
Are the Aussies, because we're Aussies, are we getting, I think it's quite natural if you look at all countries.
well, here's the thing, Ari. If you're an Aussie kid and you're living at home until you're, 25, 26 years old, you don't have the need to go out there and work part-time behind
Yes.
the grill.
You don't have to.
No.
So why would you?
And that's not necessarily a bad thing. It's just the way the world has evolved. Now, yeah, during COVID and off the back of COVID, it was a huge issue, right? The undersupply of workers.
Massive.
Now, I think you're seeing the reverse occur.
Yeah.
Immigration is important. You can scale like the success of Australia versus the immigration intake over different periods of time, and you'll see like immigration's been fundamental to our
Makes
growth.
a lot of sense.
Arthur Caldwell turned around and said in the post-war period, he was the Minister of Immigration at the time. I'm not sure who the Prime Minister was, but Arthur Caldwell famously said, we need to populate or perish. And we populated. And look, if it wasn't for immigrants, starting from the first fleet right through till today, the country that we know today wouldn't exist. So I could never attack an immigrant for wanting to come to Australia. It's not that. It's about managing immigration with
That's
our
right.
housing supply, with that infrastructure availability. And it's funny, in our national anthem, we turn around and say we have boundless plains to share. We are a huge country when it comes to land size and land mass, but we're so concentrated. I might be talking very big picture now, but it will be fantastic to see incentives for these new Australians or these people that are working here on visas to go and build up Goulburn, Wollongong, Newcastle, etc., and see these semi-regional cities
100%.
build up and their economies blossom, their housing supply build up. Sydney, it's very, very dense. At the same time, it's not dense enough. It's quite the conundrum.
Yeah, it's funny because you actually see this transcend across other countries. I mean, I could give Greece an example. I've got my village in Kalamata, and you get the Greeks coming out of the war. They had to do the hard work of picking all the olives, and they've got to do all that hard yakka. But what happens is, as time went by, they got that little bit of wealth, a little bit of a taste. They became fat cats, and to an extent. And then in comes the immigrants. They've got a lot of Albanians that came in, and then they sit back, and the Greeks don't pick olives anymore. They go, we use our brains. We're going to get the Albanians to go pick all the olives. But the reality is, the Albanians will get the money. They will then buy the houses that the Greeks live in, and then so the cycle goes. I mean, the Greeks,
that's
those
right.
old Greeks, they'll move on, and then the Albanians will be living there, and then they will also, at some stage, sit like fat cats and go, great, things are great now. We're going to get these guys to come in. And it's just a cycle that
It's a circle of life.
We're talking about before, when you get one generation that does it's tough. What were you saying?
Oh,
Made a lot of sense. Yeah.
Look, it's not consistent with all things in
No,
life,
we can't.
but
Yeah.
I really believe it. In most cases, tough times create strong people.
Yes.
Strong people create good times. Good times create weaker people, and weaker people create worse times. And
Where are
worse
we
times,
now?
harder times.
Where are me and you now?
I actually think these are hard times.
These are hard times?
I believe it. And I know that when I said it at dinner, you're a bit unsure. However, if you're going to look at the world, evaluate the state of economies, evaluate the status of people when it comes to social cohesion, look at how people feel about where they live. It's not very good. And I'm a very optimistic person. I'm optimistic for the future. I think that in the next few years, we will eventually have a rebound economically, socially, politically.
But Harris, how are we going to buy a house?
Well,
Are we just going to get paid more, or are the house is going to go down, or a mix of both? Because there's three. One, the other, or a combination.
well, eventually the economy will stabilize.
Does that mean houses go down?
It doesn't mean houses go down. It means that the price of the house will set to a certain value, and it won't just keep escalating. At the same time, interest rates.
Can't.
What do you mean it can't?
It can't keep escalating. Not at this rate.
But that comes down to supply.
Yes.
So eventually there will be more housing supply, and then people will be going to multiple auctions and saying, oh, look, I like this, I like that. I'm not sure which one I'm going to get, but I've got options here. I'm not going to snap up the first thing that comes to mind because there isn't too much competition in the market, right? And what we're seeing right now is an undersupply of property, high demand for property, and as a result of the high demand and undersupply, prices are expensive. When the economy stabilizes, when the developers and people in the construction industry are out there building again, and when the amount of people looking to buy decreases, which it will, then we'll start to see property value decline, and people purchase properties and do it at a rate when it comes to their interest and return that isn't crazy. It will happen.
And what's the fastest way to make this happen? Because I think time is of the essence right now for Aussies. Do you build up or do you build wide?
I think you do both.
Do both. So trigger buff, keep going, and
yes.
our
Yes.
Camden way, keep going.
Definitely. Now, the reason I say both is because I don't believe it's my place as a person on council to dictate to the construction industry either. I believe that ultimately you need to let business do what they see fit to kickstart development. You have your confines in the way of zonings, you have your confines in the way of construction laws, but at the same time, you don't want to start dictating to the developers, hey, it's got to be this certain way. and this
Take
certain-
anything we can get right now, just build.
to an extent.
To an
To an
extent.
extent,
Don't hurt the
100%.
environment. Build,
And-
but don't.
Exactly right. And at the same time, you want developers to accommodate with infrastructure, to come to the right agreements.
That's
When it
right,
comes to
yeah.
voluntary planning agreements with council, when it comes to the contributions they make to council. And you want that process to be as easy as possible with as much red tape removed as possible too. You want to cut red tape, make it easy to build, make it easy to grow. The easier it is for developers to build, the cheaper it is for developers to build, the easier it is for people to buy when that supply becomes available. At a state government level, you're seeing an appetite by both parties, Labor and Liberal, to zone in such a way where people might say, well, it's quite high in density, but it's the only option we have at the moment.
Yeah.
In Sydney, it'd be also great to see us build out in those places I mentioned before, Goulburn, Wollongong, Newcastle, etc.
Yeah.
Mm.
Well, I think we started right from where your grandfather, your grandparents, to your dad, to yourself growing up, to all the way where we are now. We did veer off, which I mean that's part of it. We couldn't help it. I think we just got both locked in,
Yeah.
and it extremely intriguing to see to hear your views about the controversial questions I threw at you.
I didn't expect those pearls from you, Ari. You're usually such a very respectful,
Well,
decent
I'm
person, and
intrigued.
you are.
I'm intrigued,
But I didn't expect
You know,
those curveballs from you. It was great.
I'm intrigued because you know, you don't get to sit in the presence of you know, decision makers.
Oh, now you're buttering me up.
No, you don't. You don't. You don't. So, first individual from a political background and a Tropicana background to come the best of both worlds. But
like Hannah Montana.
That's right. That's right. But really, from a young kid, you grew up with great work ethic. Your parents, your dad too, in particular, working super hard, massive
Mhm.
hours.
Mhm.
You know, in the markets, in the seafood
Mhm.
game. From the age of 15, you were there helping him, but you were still
Mhm.
curious about the world. So when you came out of school, you basically followed your intuition of
That's right.
journalism. You tried multiple things, but you also had a passion for having a good time and doing your stuff with Olympus, which is such a successful, iconic
Thank you.
club in Sydney
Thank
right
you.
now. You basically always went with your intuition to make decisions and always stay on the right sides, which has brought you to, you've been elected twice.
Mhm.
I know you got some wicked events coming up. I say
Thank
we
you
run
very
this
much.
podcast in 10 years' time. And I don't know, Harris for Prime Minister. I don't know. Where do you see yourself in 10 years' time? Or we just have to find out.
I guess we'll find out. At this point in time, I'm actually quite content with the trajectory I'm on. I don't see myself making any sort of crazy new moves outside of evolving the business, outside of steadily working my way up in the Liberal Party. I've made a lot of fast decisions and gone very hard when pursuing both. For the next few years, I'm ready to just build on what we've already created.
Until we have the first Greek Prime Minister of Australia.
Come
on,
no,
man.
I don't think so. I don't
Come
think
on.
so.
We had the Acropolis. We had Euro 2004. Now it's time we do something.
Look, man, if I would ever make a tilt at being a member of parliament, which I do have ambition for, it wouldn't be until I'm a bit more established. I would not want to be a young MP. I've known a lot of young MPs. Take my hat off to all of them for putting themselves forward for public service in their 20s. But for me, on the current journey I'm on, I don't see myself putting my hand up to run for a seat in the very near future. It's a huge sacrifice. Being on council's something in itself, right? You're putting yourself out there to the public. You're dealing with issues that are quite sensitive from time to time. But
Comes with a duty of care.
exactly right. And I want to know that I've done everything possible before putting myself forward to be an MP that would have me in a situation where I have no FOMO, for lack of a better word. Like, I'm ready to give my all to being an MP. There's no side hustle. There's no incentive to go on some sort of trip
Does that
overseas.
mean no Olympus?
Yeah, I would walk away from Olympus.
Whoa.
I would have to sell my half of the business back to TAS.
Okay, so Olympus lives.
Olympus will live
Okay,
through
I'm
TAS
happy then.
potentially. Yes.
All right.
But no, if I were to become an MP, I would give my all to that. There would
Yeah.
be no compromise. There would be no side hustle. It would be about serving that constituency. It's a full-time job. It's not like being on council, which is a vocation of sorts.
There you go. Well, thank you again. Well, it's hit 10:41. The time flew.
Wow.
And I think it's time that we
I don't know, man. I've been drinking the water and the ouzo and I haven't
It's
been
all
sure which
done.
one's which.
Okay.
I think this is it.
All right.
Looks a
you
bit
got a bit
thicker.
left.
Cheers, man.
Ella, thank you
All
for
the
coming
best.
on.
Thank you for having me, Ari. It's been awesome.